All right, CBOM, Sales Clinic. Here we go. So what I want to talk to you today about is 3 steps to enroll more ideal clients. Now, I called this training 3 steps to enroll more ideal clients, but trust me, as you'll see, each step has several moving parts. But the good news is none of this is complicated, and you can begin implementing this immediately. So the fastest way to double your business is to double your sales. So for example, if you get 10 leads a month and you close one of them for $5,000, that's $60,000 a year. If you close 2, you're at 120 grand. So tell me, which one is more fun? This isn't a long presentation, but there are some important things here. So before you have the call, and I've got phones up here, but it's going to be a Zoom session. We all know that. Or you might be meeting with the person for face-to-face. All of that's fine, right? But before you have your enrollment call, your strategy session, your discovery call, whatever you're calling these, with the right preparation, the sale itself is really mostly done. You want to filter and sort your prospects. You don't really just want to let anybody take up your time. Unqualified leads are just an emotional drain. They're the people that say, oh man, I love you. That was amazing. And I want to work with you in the future. Okay. And that's really just not what happens. Having said that, when you're first launching a program, I don't recommend you put any filters in place. You just talk to everybody and then you put your filtering process in place. And I'll talk more about filters and how you would do that in just a little bit. But you're not just filtering for whether or not they are likely to be qualified. You're also filtering for willingness to do business with you. Do they want to work with you? And you're looking for that ability to do business with you. In other words, are they the decision maker? And do they have the money? And also, I really recommend you use an application, and we'll talk about that here in just a second, but not to begin with. You can. I shouldn't say not to begin with. When Teresa and I open up a new offer, we don't always put the application in there to begin with, because we want to talk to everybody, mainly because we want to see what our ad is attracting, because the people you're drawing in to begin with are really related to the ad you're running or the language around the offer, those kinds of things. But anyway, then you put the application in place. And when you use an application process, especially for a high ticket funnel, this is basically people applying to have a strategy session with you. Now, what I like, and we're going to ask questions, right? But they have different, depending on the tool you're using. It's nice to be able to show a single question at a time. Not the end of the world if you can't. But I would start with, tell me a little bit about your business. This is where you tailor that to their niche or their, obviously if it's not business, tell me a little bit about you. So tell me a little bit about your coaching practice would be a question we would ask. I'll tell you, it's kind of funny. The person that writes a novel on this question might be a problem to work with. So just food for thought. Then it's, why are you interested in working with me or working with us? Or if you haven't really done a good job of getting your branded solution, what is it about XYZ that you're interested in? What are you looking to, and you could add more to this. It could be like, what are you looking to accomplish? This is one of those funny areas where short and just one-liner, one question answers, that can be a problem because it's just showing you the person's not really opened up. This question reveals how they like to buy, right? So they'll tell you exactly what they're looking for, what they want to accomplish, and it lets you know how you can help them. Then this is the truth around this. You can only work with so many people. So the spots, we usually do something along the lines of, this is an extremely limited opportunity. Spots are limited. Why should I consider you to fill one of those spots? Now, this is part of the guru positioning. I hate to use the word, but this is just part of positioning you as an authority. They are applying to work with you. And really, you're looking for this, you want people to sell you on them. I'm your best student because it's that kind of thing. And then you want to talk about the investment. You don't have to, and you can do it in broad terms, but the investment for this opportunity or program or whatever you're calling it is, you can either be really specific and just tell them the exact amount, or you can do a range. So like in one of my posts, I put that the investment for this is a high 4-figure investment, but worth it compared to knowing how to do $50,000 a month or $500,000 a year or something like that. And what happens when you tell them the investment, right? Now you already know, because they know, they have an idea. Even if you just do like I do, it's a high 4-figure investment. They have a pretty good idea. And so at that stage of the game, you can just ask them, how much have you made preparations, and are you ready to make this investment? Are you ready to invest in yourself? And the wording on the questions can be changed a little bit. And it's usually you use a yes or a no kind of this or a checkbox. One of the ways you can do this question is you've just talked about the investment in the program is in this range or this exact amount. Are you prepared to make that investment now? Checkbox. You could do a second. These are drop down choices or whatever. The next question could be something along the lines of no, but I could get the money or that kind of thing. Or no, I'm not invested. Just no. Obviously, if it's a no, you wouldn't talk to them, right? And then the final question of sorts that I always want to know is everybody involved in the decision-making process going to be on the call? And so you could ask that question a number of different ways. Is there anyone besides yourself involved in the decision process? And then parenthetically say, if so, make sure they're on the call. And then the other things you're going to ask for, typical stuff like contact information, phone number. One of the ways we ask for that is what's your cell phone number in case we have difficulty connecting on Zoom, right? Or you might even ask for their Facebook URL so that you can go do a little bit of research before you talk to them. Anyway, those are just some of the questions that you would ask in the application. And then this is the stuff that really starts to make a difference. Send material before the call. You could shoot a quick video tailored just to them or other material that legitimizes who you are to them. It could be an article that you've written. It could be a post on your blog. It could be an interview that somebody did with you. It could be any number of things, right? Whether it's, and also recordings make sense. Like I was recorded for ABC News and it doesn't fit now because I was very specifically branded in a particular product I had at the time, Healthy Selling. So I wouldn't use it anymore because of that, but it's one of those things you could send. And I've got many articles in Six Figure Coach magazine. So I'll send some of those sometimes to people. If you've ever built any tutorials that would walk them through something that would be helpful, those are really good things to send because you're sending them a link to training related to their issue. So that's always very helpful because it's building that know, like, and trust factor. And then the frequency of how often you send this stuff has everything to do with how far away the appointment is. Now, I don't personally like to schedule appointments for strategy sessions more than a few days out. That's just me. And I highly recommend you follow that same practice. Don't set appointments that are 7, 10 days, 2 weeks out, because the farther out they go, the less likely they are to show up. And you end up just clogging up your calendar with 72 hours is really my preference personally. But if you have a few days before the call, try to touch base with them three to 5 times. For example, you'd send a confirmation message when they book their call. And this could be automated. That part's not a big deal. I like to send a Facebook Messenger message telling them that you're looking forward to the call. And of course, sending out a legitimizer. And then the day of, you want to send out a message saying that you're looking forward to it. All of this creates familiarity, and that makes a huge difference. If you don't have time or you aren't getting any of this stuff done, at the very least on the day of, send them out a message along the lines of, hey, Bob, I've been thinking about our call today. Thing you're going to say to them is hit reply and in one sentence, give me an idea of what you would ideally see happening in our conversation today. And the reason I'm asking is I want to be thinking about it and start coming up with solutions before we get on a call. What I do, I don't tend to email this. I actually send it to them via Facebook Messenger. I don't do this all the time, but it's one of those things that I will tell you if you're doing these things, if you're having the confirmation message, shooting out a Facebook Messenger message, part of why I like to have their Facebook URL, the legitimizer, and Dino asked, what's a legitimizer? So a legitimizer, that's the things, articles, radio interviews, podcasts, videos, those are things that legitimize who you are to them. And so then, like I said, on the day of, send them a message. Now, any questions about pre-call preparation? All right, cool. So during the call, what you want to do, obviously, the first thing you want to do is build rapport. But this isn't, you don't spend all day here. It's easy to talk about weather, although Dino and I both have the same problem. Because we're here in Southern California, when you're talking to somebody in the Northeast, or for that matter, the Northwest, and they're under 3 feet of snow, you know, talking to them about your 70-degree day and what a burden it is may or may not be a good thing. However, it's just a quick thing. And anybody that's been on a sales conversation with me knows I jump right into the conversation. And it's part of taking control because that's the next thing you want to do. You want to establish control and the agenda. You're the coach. You're in charge. They do need to follow your direction. If you allow them to be the ones that just start asking, I'm just curious about how things work with you. Tell me how your process is. If they're the person asking the questions is the person in charge. So at the very top of the call, I establish how this call is going to go, what the agenda is, and I ask for permission to ask questions. I also typically ask, listen, we only have a short amount of time. Do you mind? Is it okay with you? Because I have a specific path I want to take you through this conversation to make sure you get everything you need. Is it okay with you if once I already know what I need to know, do you mind if I cut you off? I don't want to be rude, but do you mind if I cut you off in the interest of time so we can get through everything? I've never had anybody tell me no. And again, it's just part of establishing the outcome. And now I also talk about establishing detachment. Now, this isn't for them. This is for you. It helps them. But what you want to do is just state your goal for the call and ask, what would you ideally walk away from with this call? And here's what I mean by this. I'm not here to sell you anything, right? So my goal for this call is for you to come away from it a little better off than when you came in and have a clear path for where you want to go to move forward to get where you want to be. If it makes sense for us to work together, we'll talk about that. And if not, that's okay too. Is that okay with you? And I'll talk more a little bit about that in a second. I really am not worried about whether or not they sign up. I just am not worried about it. And you want to get to the point you are not worried about it either. So this is detachment from the outcome. You're okay with however the call ends. Now, a few things to keep in mind when you're on the call. Don't coach. Don't solve problems. Now, you can coach them through their feelings. If they're hesitant about working forward with you, you can coach them through that. That's not the kind of coaching I'm not telling you to do. But this isn't a free coaching session. You're not going to sit there and pour your guts out as a coach and them just miraculously say, this was amazing, I'm hiring you. That unfortunately isn't how it really works. What you want to do is you want to commiserate and help discover value. The only reason you're on the call is to identify the real problem and help them make a decision to solve it, and whether or not you're the solution to help them. Now, you want to use phrases like, wow, that's interesting. Tell me more about that. Or how did that make you feel? And we're just asking questions. We want them to expand on their answers. And then you want to eliminate objections. Now, the best enrollers, notice I didn't say salespeople, but the best enrollers, you're not trying to close a sale at all. What you're looking for is to uncover potential reasons for not working together. I mean, let's face it, if there's a reason not to work together, you probably shouldn't work together. So that's where you're going to ask questions. And you can just ask them, how will you go about deciding whether or not this is good for you? And I do ask, is anyone else involved? Or do you have time to make these changes? So just questions along those lines. What you don't want to do is wait for certain objections to come up. If you wait till they come up, now you have to overcome the objection. If you're the person that brings them up and deals with them, now you're a problem solver, right? When you do that, you're actually helping. So if they bring it up first, it's an objection that you have to overcome. If you bring it up before they do, now you can just deal with it. Does that make sense? The other thing you want to do on the call is eliminate buyer's remorse. There's actually a chemical process that occurs in our brain. And what happens is they immediately think, I shouldn't have done this. Deal with it. Just prepare them for it, especially when you're doing higher ticket purchases. You just tell them, hey, listen, I want you to understand that as soon as we get off this call, if it isn't already happening right now, your brain, because remember, the amygdala doesn't like change. And so it's immediately going to start questioning this decision. And I just want you to remember that the reason you've decided to make this investment is because, and talk to them about the benefits and the transformation that's going to happen. Make sense? All right. Immediately after the call, if they didn't enroll, and even if they do, but if they didn't enroll, you want to send out a summary as quickly as possible. Now, this is so that they remember what you talked about and so that they have something to share with somebody if they need to. You want to share what you heard them telling you. And I literally say, here's what I heard you telling me. I put that right in the email. Here's what I heard you tell me. Comment about the problems that they have. Show them that you heard them. People want to be heard. And then a small section on what they get out of working with you. No, I'm not talking about details about how many weeks you're going to meet or how long the calls are going to be. Stay high level. And then follow up. Deliver value. Suppose they need some time. Sometimes it does happen, right? So send the follow-up with a summary. And then the next day, send them a message with a training or an article or something to show that you care about them. And by the way, it doesn't have to be your article. It could be something you found that you thought that they would get great value out of, right? Also, follow up if you sense any hesitancy. And you can say things like, I've been thinking about you, and I have some ideas about how we could do it differently, or some other thoughts about how we can help you get to X, Y, Z. I'd love to jump on a call and just discuss it with you. The big thing is you want to get them back on a call. Now, I will say that if they didn't sign up on the call and you believe that they should have, you really want to have scheduled an actual follow-up call, because maybe you leave it at they're going to think about it and they decide they need 3 days to think about it. Okay, fine. Get it on the calendar so you actually have a follow-up call. So mindset. The sale happens here, happens in your mind before it happens anywhere else. How you think and you feel about selling is always going to determine your success. I talked about it in the first module of Coach's Blue Ocean. So if you want to enroll more people, one of the mindsets that you want to adapt is that you need to believe you are here to add value. I'm not doing anything to anybody. I'm helping them always. Also, all selling is just coaching. The more you approach sales as a coach, the better off you'll be, right? Because coaching is about asking questions, drawing it out of them, because the answer's in there. We just have to help draw it out. Selling is not adversarial unless you're doing it wrong. So it's no battle. Approach this like, hey, Mr. Prospect, I see you have an issue. I don't know if I can help you, but at the very least, I want to understand your issue, and then we can both decide if we can come up with a solution. So for me to do that, for me to see your problem and really understand it, would you mind if I got up and came over to your side of the table? Remember, this is a visual image for you. And then together we can take a look and show you, and you can show me the problem, right? Does it make sense? In other words, you want to be their advocate. And then the other thing that comes up is money, right? And I'm not talking, so we'll talk about ROI, right? So return on investment means different things for different people. So it's important to realize money is a focusing issue. And that's why the more money someone invests in something, the more focus and attention it gets. And it's all relative, right? So somebody might invest $50,000 and maybe that's their entire life savings and they just have to make it work, and they will make it work. Whereas a billionaire gives $50,000 and that's a weekend. It's a day. It's just not, it doesn't mean the same thing. So it's always relative. But when people give you money for what you help them with, the return on investment for them is the solution. And it's a fair exchange. Nobody loses. Sometimes people have hangups on money. If you fail to help that person make a buying decision, 2 people walk away from that conversation disappointed. They did not come to the call just to talk or visit. They came to that conversation because they hope you can help them. Getting better at asking questions and helping them understand the real need and figuring out truthfully whether or not you can help them, because that's all that matters, right? If you can't help them, then you need to point them in a different direction to where maybe they can get the help. But if you can help them, you owe it to them to do your best, to become your best at uncovering their situation and enrolling them. So don't fail them. And then finally, it is detachment. I talked about this a little bit earlier. I always called this feigned indifference. And what I mean by that is that I learned that when I was in the groove, when I was just sales were coming easy, it was because I was detached from the outcome. I could do my job. I did it the best of my ability, but it didn't matter to me whether this one bought because the last one did and the next one will. And so I wasn't attached to what was happening in the moment. And by being that way, I actually took the pressure off and I got more sales. The worst thing you could do is be desperate. And so in sales, we call it commission breath. And it is way worse than coffee breath. So people can smell desperation. And so you just really get to the point where no matter how you feel, you want to take a moment and just center yourself and be aware of the fact that, you know what, if I can help them, great. And if I can't, that's okay too. Mentor of mine, he likes to say at the top of this is at the very beginning of an enrollment call. This is how he starts it. He'll say something along the lines of, look, you might have been on conversations like this before, and they probably work a little different than the way I do. I want to tell you right up front, I have zero vested interest in any specific outcome except for one thing. And that one thing is at the end of this call, I want you to leave a little better off than you are right now. Is that okay with you? Now, obviously, who says no to that, right? So everybody says yes. So then he goes on with, obviously, This call is set up because we hope to do business together. And if it makes sense and if everything is a fit, we'll explore what that might look like. But what I want you to know is I'm not attached to you whipping out a credit card and throwing money at me. There will be no pressure, no gimmicks, no false scarcity like today and today only. I just don't do that. All right. And they're going to say yes. So again, and he'll repeat it, he'll go on. I have zero vested interest in any specific outcome. I have no hidden agenda in making you do something that you just don't want to do. It's just not how I work. Is that okay with you? Now, keep in mind, you can't take that approach unless that's actually how you really feel. Okay? You're here to add value to another human being. You're not doing something to them. You're doing something for them and with them. Any questions?